name is Frank Ziemba, and I live in the Clear Plant. I just have a point I want to clarify on the sewage lines coming through the township property. Who's responsible if there's any damage done to the building that they're going under that we own?
There's going to be damage. We're tearing it open.
I'm sorry?
We're going to tear it open.
So who's responsible for the damage? I heard last time
The
that
township.
the township is.
Yes.
Somebody else has been into the property and the township's responsible.
Yes. Tommy made that deal.
Is that right?
When you talk about damage,
I'm saying, sure.
they may have to take some panels off the roof, they may have to take some panels off the back, and our guys will put them back. That's the deal.
What if while they're digging, and I don't know, something happens where the ground shifts and now the building, there's damage to it. Who's responsible to repair
When I heard Mr.
Here, I can read the provision.
The township's responsible for any damage. Mr. Fuchs is responsible for nothing.
it? Right, okay. I mean, that's what I understood from the last meeting.
Did you read it?
Yeah, hang on a second. Okay, so this is the provision in the agreement regarding damage. Fuchs shall repair any damage to the Cecil parcel created by the construction and installation of the extension, specifically excluding any damage to the storage shed, which shall remain the responsibility of Cecil. So it's the shed, the shed building would still be the responsibility of the township, but any other portion of the property would be Mr. Fuchs' responsibility. That's what the agreement says.
Okay, just to clarify, but if something happened where the ground shifted and there was damage or repairs that had to be made, it's the township that's responsible.
It's like a law school exam. I mean, if the ground, the shed, what I just read, it says the storage shed. So if the damage is to the shed itself, my interpretation of that agreement, which I just read, is that the township would be responsible. For damages to some other portion of the property, and that's caused by Mr. Fuchs, and that would be his responsibility.
Frank, if it's just a pole building with posts, and in other words, that was really the best we could do to save not going through the middle of the property and losing half or a third of our property.
All right, I just want to understand.
Very well. Any other comments?
Just,
Very well.
Joe Petito, Sunset Drive, McDonald, PA.
Speak up. Thank you.
Okay, the noise from Fay all night long. What's going on with it?
So I actually just, per your video, had a conversation with Brad Heigl and Matt Bird, actually a conference call. It will stop at 10 p.m. going forward. The reason they couldn't stop it the day that we had that discussion with them was because of shift work with Fay, so they had to allow Fay an adjustment to their shift work.
But why 10? Why can't it be like 7?
I mean, it could, we've had this discussion, it could be, but you have to keep in mind that you're then extending the length of the project. It's really up to you. I mean,
I'm just
not you
I'm
personally,
just
one
person.
resident.
I mean, I
But
don't know how
generally,
the
in
noise.
speaking to everybody else, some people even said 11, they would be okay going to 11. 10 is what, you know, in talking to you and talking to Mr. Terry, and talking to a couple of other people that live in that general area, 10 was the general consensus. If you come back to us and say,
Yeah,
we
that's fine.
7, then 7 it is, we're advocating for you. Because I told you, I mean, I was up,
Yeah,
I heard it too, it kept me up too, so.
yeah, 10's fine.
But they are fully aware that we are gonna stick to that, they just had to work on the schedules.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else for a comment? Yes, ma'am.
So my name's Maureen Mueller, I live at 980 Road, and I had, so first off, last month wanted to thank Supervisor Fisher and the Chief of Police for sending an officer out, and the 4 members from the Parks Department who came out to the park when I notified them that there was a swastika painted on the ground in front of one of the pavilions. I was the one who called the township building, and I can't remember who I spoke with, that she wasn't even aware of what a swastika was and why that would be something we would not want in our community.
Excuse me, please talk into the mic.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
So what part, do I need to start over? Is that easier?
Well, I'm
You tell
hoping
me.
I grabbed it. I don't know what the people heard here.
Okay, tell me, what do you need me to do?
Maureen,
I think we heard you.
Try the other microphone, maybe. I think
She
they,
didn't, then that doesn't, okay, so,
it helps
Your
you.
oven's not on. Your oven's not on, so please just use that other one, maybe hold it in your hand. Apologize.
So another.
You're fine.
Maybe we figured it all out before we even started. So anyhow, so thank you Supervisor Fisher and the police department and the 4 members of the Parks Department who came out and got rid of the swastika that was painted on the ground in front of the Bill Burns Pavilion over in the park. While I was there, I went, just to go get for a walk up to the Montour Trail and saw it on the ground, and I was like standing around it because there was a gentleman and his little son riding their bike around the park that morning, doing loops around the park, and I didn't want them to see that this is something that we have in our neighborhood. Not cool. So I'm not sure where that ended up. I don't know if it's found out who did it, but it is a hate symbol, not something cool in our little town. Second point, to the ethics question that I asked about earlier, I was curious about a member, who is the head of the zoning board? What is that person's name?
George Augustine.
There's George Augustine. Okay.
No, that was on the comprehensive plan committee.
No, separate issue,
Okay.
same topic of just ethics in the township and people having power to make decisions that maybe they or their families can financially benefit from. Right, so the member, so the person who is the head of the zoning board, are they the same members who are looking to put in a well pad on their property pending a rezoning of the property? Is that what that is?
Supervisor Cecil said he wasn't part of that, but what is your question, or what are your comments?
My comments are, so the head of the zoning board, is he or she, he have property that needs to be rezoned so he can put a gas well on his property, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, the head of the zoning board, there's 3 members, one's the chairman.
He's the chairman, sorry, it's really hard to find information on your township's website.
No,
I
it
had
is.
to call Jason Ortete's office to even find our zoning map for our township. Because when I called them, I got sent over to Mr. Janusa when I was asking this question. He was out of the building. I couldn't find it. Google searches didn't even come up. So I called Jason Ortete's office. He's like, oh, no problem. Here you go. So my point and my question is, the person who has the power or is on the board or the team or the panel that makes these decisions, he can technically make a decision for which he will financially benefit from when he...
It's hard, though, that he abstained from it. He wasn't a part of that hearing.
But I think we as a township should really, really think about how we do these sorts of things.
Alan, would you address any
Well,
comments
before you do
here?
that, just understand, George Augustine's been serving
But we don't know
a
that.
free member of the board for the last 22 years. He served at both.
But it doesn't matter, even if you are, if you are in a privately held company, you cannot make decisions for which you will financially benefit from. There are whole groups and panels and boards that will stop you from doing that.
That is true. And
You have to be held accountable for that. Like, our government should also be a part of that.
I mean, there's a public official ethics act that all of the supervisors and
Well, it's supervisors, what
and
about the
the zoning
whole?
board members are subject to it as well. And they have to, so, yeah, I mean, you can't vote on something that, where you would have, or a member of your immediate family would have a private pecuniary benefit. You can't. You have to abstain from voting. It doesn't mean that you have to step down from your position if something would come.
That's really bad.
If something would come. Well, no, I mean.
I called the state and I asked.
No, he didn't abstain, he didn't participate.
Well,
There's a difference.
I'm giving a general answer, I'm not answering a specific issue, because I'm not even sure what you're referring to, but in a rezoning, just so you know, a rezoning is something that comes to this board, not the zoning hearing board.
Yeah, but so everybody has little, because as we're finding out tonight, people have different conversations with others that, you know, maybe for whatever reason, right? It's not necessarily in the public realm, so we don't know what happens if it's not in a public, you know, forum. If it's not on the township website, if it's not on, like, we don't have a township newsletter that says, hey, this is what happened this month. We don't have any of that kind of communication. There's nothing proactive going out to let people know what's going on.
So we should be doing more, is that your opinion?
Yeah, that would be my, if there's some sort of newsletter or something social media, something as easy as possible, right? Because everybody already has full agendas, get it.
Very well.
The other thing, one last thing is, can we have, by all that's holy, can we please get a township cleanup day? There's so much garbage on the sides of the road. I have people who I, like, work with who tell me, like, you guys, you know, it's disgusting. You know, it's not so bad now because the grass is high, but in the spring and the fall, it's just awful.
Very well. We'll address it. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else, Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to notify the board, McDonald got flooded.
So what?
McDonald got flooded.
All right. Anyone else have a comment? I wanted to let the record show too, I did find that email regarding the comprehensive planning committee from Supervisor Fisher, and it said no to Barb. It was June 14th at 4 o'clock, 4:02. Said no to Barb Hamilton and Darlene Barney, yes to Wendy Johnson and Jill Stevens. I just want to let the record show that I did receive an email on that.
You're completely lying. I have never sent an email to you.
Came back that way. Earl, any other comments?
That's a total lie.
Yes.